How to stay composed and master life. How you stay composed, because when you show that nothing bothers you, you control the game. You become an enigma, someone people look up to but can never quite figure out, and in that mystery lies your strength. True power is not about domination or aggression, it is about presence. A presence so strong that it doesn't need to prove itself. A presence that commands respect through silence, through an unshakable state of mind. Master this, and you master life. To stay unshaken, think about the strongest people you know. They don't react impulsively. They don't let emotions dictate their actions. They pause, they assess, they respond with intention. This is not because they lack emotions, but because they have mastered them. Emotional detachment isn't about suppressing feelings, it's about controlling them. Picture this: you're in a heated argument, and the other person is trying to provoke you. Do you react? Do you let their words control your emotions? Or do you smile, unaffected, knowing their words hold no weight unless you give them power? Emotional detachment is about refusing to hand over your peace to external forces. It's about understanding that your inner world is sacred, untouchable. When you adopt this approach, stress decreases, clarity increases, and life's challenges become mere puzzles to solve, not battles to fight. Think of the principle that thoughts shape reality. What you focus on, you attract. When you allow external events to dictate your state of mind, you become a slave to circumstances. But when you take control of your thoughts and emotions, you become the architect. Consider the story of a man who lost everything. His business collapsed, his investments crumbled, and he was left with nothing. Most would drown in despair, but not him. Instead, he saw the failure as a lesson, not a tragedy. He understood that his mind was his greatest asset, and no external loss could take that away. With this mindset, he rebuilt everything, stronger than before. This is the power of detachment. When you stop identifying with failures or setbacks, you free yourself to rise above them. A major reason people fail to achieve their goals is emotional turbulence. They let fear, doubt, and frustration control them. They start with ambition, but give up the moment challenges arise. But those who master detachment understand that emotions are just fleeting sensations. They don't allow temporary feelings to derail long-term goals. They persist because they have trained their minds to see obstacles as stepping stones rather than roadblocks. Training yourself to be emotionally detached does not mean you become cold or indifferent. It means you no longer allow external forces to dictate your internal state. You can experience joy, sadness, and excitement, but you remain in control. Your emotions serve you, not the other way around. To develop this mindset, practice stepping back in emotionally charged situations. The next time someone insults you, pause. Instead of reacting, observe your feelings. Ask yourself, does this affect my life in any meaningful way? More often than not, the answer is no. By choosing not to react, you take away their power over you. Mindful indifference is superpower. We're conditioned to believe we must care about everything. People's opinions, their validation, their judgments. Society teaches us that our worth is measured by how much we invest in the thoughts and expectations of others. But true freedom comes when you realize that most things simply don't matter. The next time you find yourself overthinking, ask, will this matter in 5 years? If not, let it go. Most of what troubles us, criticism, temporary setbacks, fleeting embarrassments, becomes insignificant with time. Yet we allow them to consume our thoughts, dictate our emotions, and control our actions. This is why indifference doesn't mean apathy. It means prioritization. It means recognizing that your energy is finite and choosing to invest it in what truly deserves your focus. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every opinion is worth considering. When you stop reacting to every minor inconvenience, you regain control. You shift from being emotionally reactive to being strategically responsive. And that shift changes everything. Think of the people you admire most. They aren't the ones desperately seeking approval or reacting emotionally to every challenge. They are the ones who stand firm, unshaken by the noise of the world. They know who they are, and because of that, they cannot be easily manipulated or influenced. When you adopt this mindset, something remarkable happens. People start to respect you more, not because you seek their validation, but because they see you as someone who cannot be moved. In a world where most are desperate to fit in, to be liked, to conform, the one who stands firm in their own self-worth holds the true power. Consider a scenario where someone criticizes you unfairly. The weak-minded immediately react, defending themselves, over-explaining, or retaliating. The strong, however, remain calm. They understand that words only have power if they allow them to. By not reacting, they maintain control, not just of the situation, but of themselves. And that self-respect commands more respect than any outburst ever could. The same principle applies in everyday interactions. The next time someone insults you, stay silent. Most people expect a reaction: anger, defense, retaliation. When you give them nothing, they lose power over you. They start wondering if their words had any effect. They start feeling foolish. Your silence forces them to deal with their own emotions rather than feeding off yours. So how do you cultivate this level of indifference? Start by evaluating your reactions. The next time you feel anger, frustration, or anxiety rising over something minor, pause. Ask yourself, is this worth my energy? More often than not, the answer will be no. Train yourself to let go of what does not serve you. Another powerful practice is setting clear priorities. Define what truly matters in your life: your purpose, your growth, your peace of mind. When you have a strong foundation of self-worth, the opinions and judgments of others lose their grip on you. You become untouchable, not because you don't care about anything, but because you care deeply about the right things. This is the secret that most never realize. True power lies not in seeking approval, but in being unmoved by rejection. It is found in the ability to walk away from what drains you, to rise above petty conflicts, and to remain focused in a world full of distraction. In the end, it is not about caring less, it is about caring wisely. It is about choosing where to direct your energy and refusing to waste it on what does not deserve your attention. Because when you master the art of indifference, you don't just survive, you thrive. And in a world where everyone is overly concerned with pleasing others, the one who stands firm in their own self-worth will always rise above the rest. Stop seeking approval. Seeking approval is a trap. It places your happiness in the hands of others, making you dependent on their validation. The reality? No one's opinion of you should outweigh your own. The moment you give someone else the power to define your worth, you lose control over your own life. True confidence isn't given, it's built through self-reliance, through knowing that you don't need. Think about the most magnetic individuals you've ever encountered. They don't beg for approval. They don't shrink themselves to fit in. They own who they are, flaws and all, and that's what makes them powerful. Their power lies in their unwavering sense of self. While others chase validation, they walk their own path unapologetically and with purpose. The need for approval is rooted in fear, fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of standing alone. But here's the truth: the more you seek approval, the more you surrender your power. You become a prisoner of expectations, bending and twisting yourself to fit into molds designed by others. And in doing so, you betray yourself. Freedom comes when you release the need to be liked by everyone. It's an illusion to think that universal approval is even possible. No matter what you do, someone will always have something to say. Some will admire you, others will criticize you, and many won't care at all. So why waste your energy trying to please everyone? Consider the people who change the world. Leaders, innovators, creators. They are not concerned with fitting in. They are driven by vision, by purpose, by the fire within them. They face criticism, yet they remain unfazed. If you want to break free from the approval trap, start by asking yourself whose opinion truly matters. More often than not, the loudest voices are from those who do not walk your path, who do not understand your journey. Their words carry no real weight unless you allow them to. Another crucial step is learning to validate yourself. Acknowledge your own progress. Celebrate your wins, big or small. When you start recognizing your own worth, external approval becomes irrelevant. You no longer need applause to feel worthy. You simply know you are. Detaching from validation does not mean becoming arrogant or dismissive. It means standing firm in who you are. It means respecting your own decisions, your own journey, and refusing to let others dictate your path. It means understanding that your value is not something to be negotiated or debated. The moment you stop seeking validation is the moment you start living freely. You no longer filter your words, your actions, or your dreams through the lens of others' expectation. You move through life with authenticity, with boldness, with a sense of purpose that cannot be shaken. Not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will support you. And that's okay. The ones who matter will respect you not because you seek their approval, but because you don't need it. So choose yourself. Stand firm in your beliefs, in your values, in your vision. Let go of the need for external validation and embrace the power of self-acceptance. Because once you do, you become untouchable, not because you have everyone's approval, but because you no longer require it. How to handle criticism. Criticism is inevitable, but how you handle it defines your strength. Most people crumble at the first sign of disapproval. They take every comment to heart, allowing it to shape their self-identity, dictate their actions, and weaken their resolve. But why? Criticism is nothing more than words, opinions, and perspectives that often come from those who don't even understand your journey. The reality is that criticism only has as much power as you give it. When you react emotionally, you let it control you. When you filter it through logic, you remain in control. The strongest individuals don't let criticism shake them. They assess it with a clear mind, take what's useful and discard the rest. No unnecessary emotion, no overreaction, just selective attention to what truly matters. The key lesson: filter criticism through logic, not emotion. Keep what serves you, ignore what doesn't, and never let someone's opinion disrupt your peace. There are two types of criticism: constructive and destructive. Constructive criticism is valuable. It helps you improve. It comes from people who have experience, knowledge, and a genuine desire to see you grow. This is the type of feedback you should welcome. Destructive criticism, however, is designed to break you down. It often stems from jealousy, insecurity, or a lack of understanding. These opinions are meaningless unless you make the mistake of internalizing them. Imagine a sculptor working on a masterpiece. As he chisels away, people stop to watch. Some admire his work, some offer helpful suggestions, and others mock his efforts. Does the sculptor abandon his vision because of a few negative voices? No. He continues, guided by his inner vision, filtering out the noise. If they do, consider their words. If they don't, move on. Not all voices deserve your attention. Most criticism comes from people who have never done what you are doing. Their words are reflections of their own limitations, not yours. Criticism is a test of emotional resilience. Weak-minded individuals react impulsively. They get defensive, argue, or retreat into self-doubt. The strong remain unmoved. They acknowledge criticism, process it, but never let it disrupt their inner peace. When you respond to criticism with calm indifference, you show the world that your confidence is unshakable. Consider the great minds of history, visionaries, creators, and leaders. Every one of them faced relentless criticism. Their ideas were doubted, their decisions questioned, yet they pressed forward, refusing to let outside noise deter them. Their ability to stand firm in the face of doubt is what set them apart. They understood that criticism is often the price of progress. If you want to develop this mindset, practice detachment. The next time someone criticizes you, pause. Don't react immediately. Instead, analyze. Is there value in their words? If yes, learn from it. If not, dismiss it. When you master this habit, you free yourself from the emotional burden of seeking approval. Another powerful approach is self-conviction. When you truly believe in your path, external opinions lose their grip on you. Confidence comes from within, not from the approval or disapproval of others. The moment you realize this, you become immune to shallow criticism. The world will always have something to say. Some will praise you, others will doubt you, but in the end, the only opinion that truly matters is your own. True power lies in the ability to hear criticism, evaluate it rationally, and move forward without losing focus. So the next time someone criticizes you, remember, it's just noise. Learn from it if necessary, but never let it define you. The strongest people do not fear criticism. They use it wisely or they ignore it completely.
Somewhere along your journey of awakening, perhaps after a major spiritual insight or a personal breakdown, you felt something shift. You saw the illusion, the patterns, the noise, and then silence. At first it was powerful, even empowering, but slowly that sense of meaning just vanished quietly, like your soul turned down the volume on life and forgot to turn it back up. You stopped chasing, you stopped caring, not in a reckless way, but in that quiet, existential sigh kind of way. The question started whispering louder. Why do I feel so numb now that I finally see the truth? There's a strange paradox here. We expect spiritual awakening to ignite our passion, but for so many, especially the deeply introspective types, the empaths, the seekers, it does the opposite. It empties us. I remember a friend who, after a massive awakening, saw through the illusion of identity, ego, and chasing external success. Yet 2 months later, she was staring at her ceiling, barely able to get out of bed, feeling unmotivated and lost. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, hinted at this post-awakening fog years ago. He didn't talk in trendy spiritual terms, but he understood what happens when the unconscious becomes conscious. Jung said, enlightenment doesn't come by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This sounds beautiful until you realize what it means. Awakening isn't the end, it's the beginning of a psychological death. The death of who you thought you were, the structures that gave your life meaning, goals, careers, relationships, even your sense of time, all collapse. Here's the catch Jung would point out. Your ego isn't gone, it's confused. It lost its map, and without a new map, motivation disappears. So it's not that you're depressed or lost motivation, you're just in limbo. You've woken up from something, but you haven't woken up into something else yet. What you're feeling right now isn't failure, depression, or anxiety in the clinical sense. It's something ancient and sacred, a sacred pause, this void in between that Jung believed was essential for true individuation, the process of becoming your authentic self. The collapse of the ego's motivation system. If you've been floating in that post-awakening fog, wondering where your spark went, no, you're not crazy. You're going through a psychological shift so deep it doesn't just tweak your thinking, it reprograms your operating system. All the goals you used to chase, the to-do lists, the 5-year plans, the hustle culture playlists, they don't move you anymore. Not because you're failing, but because your motivation system itself is collapsing. Carl Jung saw this coming long before it became a trending topic on social media. Almost of your life, your motivation came from your ego identity, the me you thought you were. You wanted to prove yourself, be seen, be successful, be loved. This is how human development works. And Jung calls this the persona, the mask we wear to function in society. But the awakening process strips the mask. Suddenly you're not trying to be liked, you're not trying to win the game, because you see the game without the mask. Your old goals don't fit anymore. They were tailored to a version of you that doesn't exist. That's why you feel unmotivated. You didn't lose drive, you outgrew the fuel that powered it. Carl Jung believed that we're not here to serve the ego, we're here to integrate it, to align it with something bigger. He named this process individuation, the journey of transforming from a fragmented identity into a whole unified self. Not the small self that wants praise, but the self that transcends, the soul level center inside you that connects to everything. And this self doesn't care about status or approval. Is here to express truth. Once the awakening happens, your psyche starts recalibrating. It begins rejecting anything fake, forced, or ego-based. That includes jobs, relationships, ambitions, and even your carefully crafted dream board from years ago. That's why people often describe awakening as both freeing and disorienting. The sacred middle phase, stillness and shadow work. Jung warned, if we stop here, we get stuck. Some people awaken and fall into the trap of spiritual bypassing, convincing themselves that nothing matters, that it's all just illusion. So they disconnect, float, and numb out. They confuse detachment with disengagement. But the self wants something different. It wants to live through you. It wants to bring heaven into this human body. It doesn't reject the world. It redefines your role in it. To step into that, you got to go through a weird middle phase. Jung described perfectly, and few people recognize while they're in it. There's a phase after awakening that almost no one talks about. It's not glamorous. It looks like sitting in silence, unable to explain yourself while the world keeps rushing by. Carl Jung would say, you're not lost, you're in between. You've disidentified from the ego, but haven't yet found a new way to live from the self. This space is not a failure, it's a rite of passage. But in our hyper-productive world, stillness gets misdiagnosed as laziness. Pause gets mistaken for paralysis. So you judge yourself, and that judgment blocks the very energy your soul is trying to call back. Jung had a term for this psychological pause, enantiogromia, the process where things flip into their opposite. When you awaken, your inner pendulum swings from ego-driven striving to soul-level stillness. You go from I must do everything to why do anything. And this swing is sacred. It's how balance is restored. In myth and ancient teachings, this is the hermit phase. The death before rebirth. It's the moment the caterpillar turns to soup inside the cocoon. Not a butterfly yet, not a bug anymore, just goo. And yes, goo doesn't get stuff done, doesn't hustle, it dissolves. This is where the ego panics. It wants action, identity, and direction, but the self is whispering, let go. I'm building something deeper here. Modern spirituality often skips the hard stuff. It teaches just follow your joy or high vibes only. While intention and energy matter, Carl Jung would tell you, if you try to skip the darkness, you skip the gold. Jung believed shadow integration, facing the repressed, uncomfortable parts of you, is essential for becoming whole, not optional, not extra credit. It's the core curriculum of being a human soul. This sacred nothingness you feel is where the unconscious finally has space to rise. You're not failing, you're metabolismic. Your psyche is incredibly wise. It will store your motivation, your drive, even your access to clarity and purpose. So you're forced to feel, witness, and reclaim what you've buried. That's the real work. The emergence of soul-led motivation. Here's the beautiful twist. When you stop resisting the void, something strange starts to happen. Motivation begins to return, but it feels different this time. It's not anxious, it's not performative. It's not hustle, it's something older and something quieter. A kind of soul-led movement that feels like remembering instead of chasing. Jung called this the emergence of the self, not as concept, but as a living inner compass. So you've walked through the void, you've felt the silence, the stillness, the deep pause, and now something new is starting to stir inside you. Not a lightning bolt, and not fireworks, but more like a quiet inner pull, not to go back to your old life, but to build a new one. This is where the self begins to speak, not in words, but in nudges, in resonance, in what Carl Jung called the symbolic life. He believed that once the ego has surrendered and the unconscious is integrated, we become capable of living from a place deeper than personality. That's when life stops being about survival and becomes about meaning. And here's an unexpected fact, it's often beautifully ordinary. When the self leads, you don't hustle, you respond. You're not motivated by fear of missing out. You're guided by what feels in line. You no longer chase clarity, you recognize it when it arrives. Living from the self doesn't mean you'll always feel motivated in the traditional sense. You might still feel waves of fatigue, confusion, even grief. That's being human. But what you won't feel is that constant sense of inner betrayal, the feeling of dragging yourself through a life that doesn't fit. Instead, you might start to notice. You're drawn to create, even when no one's watching. You say no to things that don't resonate, even if they look good on paper. You start following your curiosity, not your checklist. You choose peace over performance. This is the new fuel. It's not adrenaline, it's alignment. You call this living symbolically, not in fantasy, but with soul, where you begin to trust your inner imagery, dreams, synchronicities, gut feelings as guidance. So what does this look like in real life? Sometimes it's as simple as asking different questions. Instead of what should I do, ask what's quietly calling me. Instead of what's the plan, ask where is life nudging me. Instead of how can I prove myself, ask what feels honest. You begin to participate with life instead of trying to dominate it. And this doesn't mean giving up ambition, it means transforming it. Ambition becomes devotion to truth, to presence and growth. And the irony is that kind of energy gets things done way more effectively than ego ever could. But now it's sustainable, now it's soul power. This is the self's motivation, not to impress but to express. And it often leads you to create, serve, heal, teach and build, not because you should, but because your whole being says yes. Embracing your becoming. So if you've been feeling like your spark is gone after awakening, it's the old fire that burned down so that you could find a deeper flame, one that doesn't flicker when external winds blow. Carl Jung didn't promise an easy path, and if we're here listening to this, you're already walking that path. It's not about getting back your old motivation, it's about discovering a new one rooted in wholeness, not performance. This isn't the end of your awakening, it's the beginning of your becoming.